So let's return to tonight's main news and the commemoration to mark the 30th anniversary of the start of the Falklands War. 255 British servicemen died, along with around 650 Argentine. Among those still living with their injuries, remains a strong belief that the war was worth it.
I don't wake up one single day and think it wasn't worth it. The islanders are worth it. Human rights are worth it. I believe in those things. I believe in the freedoms of mankind. I believe in the right to self-determination. You choose whose flag you have flying over your country. You choose whose laws you wish to live under, whose tax laws you live with. All of those things are things that we defended.
Well, earlier I asked the former Royal Marine Alex Macdonald, who fought in the Falklands War with 4-2 Commando and later spent a lot of time in Argentina, whether 30 years on he thought the war had been worth it.
I do wonder that if you add together the number of people who died during the conflict and those on both sides who have committed suicide since, you'll have a number that's roughly equivalent to the islanders that were living there at the time. And to me, that seems an extremely heavy price to pay.
But on the other hand, there are some pluses, surely, that have flowed from this. I mean, not the least that a fascist dictator, one of the most odious regimes Latin America had experienced, fell, democracy reigns. Probably wouldn't have happened as quickly without the war, would it?
I would agree with you entirely that probably one of the main beneficiaries, perversely, were the Argentines, and the fact that they do have the beginnings of a democracy.
You've had the rare privilege of being both in Argentina, subsequently, and in the islands at the time. I mean, what do? Just cast the islanders, you know, at that time to a fascist dictator?
No, I think it's not a black and white argument, and I appreciate that at the time, given the circumstances, there were very few other options. However, I think it's slightly unfortunate, if you like, that we still hold the same opinions now that we did then, and if we don't learn from anything that has happened since, where are we going? At some stage, sooner or later, the Argentines and the people that live on the Falkland Islands have to come to some sort of agreement and be able to live together and communicate and both prosper. It
is a pretty extraordinary thing that we are celebrating the 30th anniversary and relations are absolutely at rock bottom between Britain and Argentina, and yet presumably you observed that these two countries have far more in common than divides them.
Indeed we do. I mean, there's a saying about someone who lives in Buenos Aires, and the nickname for someone who lives there is called a porteño, and they say that a porteño is an Italian who speaks Spanish but actually wants to be English. They admire the English greatly. And if you look back in history, we put in lots of their main infrastructure, like the railways, which have now gone to rack and ruin. But they do admire the British greatly.
So, in the end, what memory of the actual conflict are you left with, given your own misgivings?
What memory, actual memory? One, that there are no winners ever in war. That would be my main lasting memory. And the fact that, I'm sure it's been said many times before, but politicians can make rather grand gestures, but they never actually have to fight the wars.
More than 100 million people have now viewed it, and tomorrow the campaign is behind the Coney 20